Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Shakespeare. In this video, I'll be giving a brief overview of Shakespeare, who he was and what he wrote, as well as his particular writing style. William Shakespeare lived from 1564 to 1616, marrying in 1582 and having 3 children. Shakespeare lived during the reigns of Elizabeth I and James VI of Scotland, First of England. Both monarchs frequented his plays and had an influence on his writing, most notably being the depiction of the witches in Macbeth stemming from James I's hatred of witches. Shakespeare wrote during the Renaissance, an artistic and literary movement focusing on nature, humanism, the rediscovery of classical Greek philosophies and Greek tragedies, and the new movements in science. While Shakespeare was not the only English Renaissance writer, his plays are the most notable works from this time period. Shakespeare wrote 3 different kinds of plays: tragedies, comedies, and histories. Shakespeare's tragedies focused on high-status characters such as kings and lords who had tragic endings. His most notable plays of the genre are Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and Hamlet. His comedies also focused on high-status characters with a mixture of low status, and these always ended happily. Usually a wedding was involved. His most notable comedies are Twelfth Night, Much Ado About Nothing, and The Merchant of Venice, though again there are many more. Finally, you have histories. These focused on historical figures whose lives tended to end in tragedy. His most notable plays being Richard III and Henry V. Shakespeare also wrote what is known as Roman histories, such as Julius Caesar and Antony and Cleopatra. There is some debate as to whether they are tragedies or histories, as while they did focus on real people, they tended to have fictionalised events, making them a mixture of both history and tragedy. Shakespeare had a particular writing style of prose and poetry, often switching between the 2 writing styles within a scene. On the left is a conversation between the characters Samson and Gregory from Act 1, Scene 1 of Romeo and Juliet. As you can see, this is a quick succession of dialogue, each character having one line and then the other replying. There is no structure and there is very limited rhythm. The quick succession makes the scene comedic, while on the right you have a more dramatic scene written in poetry. A clear ABAB rhyming scheme, as well as the structured iambic pentameter rhythm, makes this a more structured part of the play. This also being from Romeo and Juliet, specifically the prologue, in which the tragic events are detailed. Prose was often used for the more comedic scenes, again, the quick dialogue making for funny moments. Most of the lower class characters spoke exclusively in prose, the more dramatics used exclusively by the upper class characters. The poetic language was used more for the more dramatic scenes, such as monologues and soliloquies. The dramatic way of speaking, helping with the dramatic language, allowing for the audience to have the full impact of what was happening to the characters. The poetic scenes, often used by villains, depicting their evil plans, and tragic heroes, lamenting over their losses. Here we have Sonnet 18, or Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? As you can see here, there's a lot of similarities between this poem and the opening of Romeo and Juliet. The ABAB rhyming scheme returning, it ending in a rhyming couplet that reinforces the message of the poem, romantic language being used, and iambic pentameter, 5 pairs of stressed and unstressed syllables to a line being used. The romantic nature of the poem is reinforced by this strict structure. as well as the language used by Shakespeare. Again, the opening of Romeo and Juliet is very dramatic, depicting the unfortunate events of the play, and the reinforcement of its style, like the rhyming couplet at the end and the dramatic language used throughout. While both of these poems have different meanings, the sonnet being a romantic poem, while the opening prologue a lamentation on the tragedy of the play, both are just as dramatic as the other and bring out the required emotions that Shakespeare is trying to present. On the next slide, you will find Shakespeare's dagger scene from Macbeth. Try to identify whether this scene is poetry or prose, and more importantly, how do you know which one? Is it a quick succession of dialogue, or is it a monologue? How many characters are in the scene? Who are the characters talking to? Is the scene comedic in nature or dramatic? What exactly is happening? And would the scene be more beneficial from using a different writing style? What are the benefits of both of these writing styles? Why does the poetry nature of some scenes help the dramatics, and why does the prose help the comedic? What would be the impact of changing the writing style? Feel free now to pause the video and have a read through of the dagger scene. Once again, try to see which style is being used, prose or poetry, and what is the full impact of this. Again, is there a rhyme? Is there a rhythm? Is there a clear structure? And what is the impact of doing all of these things? Thank you for watching, and good luck with this activity.